Good morning, Senator. Delgado here with you on this Tuesday, February 3rd, but I'm not here alone. Joining me in studio is Co-News Director Jade Abishan. Good morning, Jade.
Good morning. How are you doing today?
Doing, but it's going to be nice and sunny, so cannot complain. It's not back east where it's 10 feet of snow. So
Yeah,
we're
I
good.
know. I know. Everybody's complaining about, oh, wow, how we're having such a warm winter here in California. I don't. So
Exactly. We're good. I'm in shorts, and yes, I do have a sweatshirt on, but yeah, I'm in
it gets
shorts.
chilly in here.
It gets chilly.
But today, it's not just me who is here. We also have a very special guest, State Senator Suzette Valladares, who is joining us over the phone. How are you doing today, Suzette?
Good morning, Jade. I am doing wonderful. I'm up here in Sacramento today, but I agree. It was an absolutely stunning weekend. I got to do some work, so I'm a little sore today, but I'm doing well.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. How is it up there in Sacramento? Are you back up there or back down here?
I am back up here in Sacramento. It's great. It's an honor to represent our community up here. The what never ceased to amaze me, view of our Capitol, which is just a stunning building where the people's work gets done. And I was so blessed to have been elected to represent our community. It's nice up here, but I do love being home.
I hear that for sure. Now, we were talking a little bit last time, the state of California and how things are going here. And we were also waiting for an update from the state of the state speech from the governor, which has now taken place in between our last interview and today. Now, can you tell me a little bit about what are some things that stood out for you from governor's speech?
Yeah, so I can't believe that it's already been 2 weeks since our last call. We may have to do this weekly because I'm like, so much has happened, including, yes, the governor's state of the state, the governor's budget came out as well. There has been a lot going on the past couple of weeks. But to recap on my perspective of the governor's state of the state, the governor has an amazing optometrist who has given him some amazing rose-colored glasses. And frankly, because he has no clue or is in denial or is simply just running for president, I was really disappointed in his state of the state, mostly because in order to fix the problems that we have here in California, we just have to be honest. And unfortunately, when it came to homelessness, when it came to wildfire mitigation, when it came to our looming oil and gas crisis, our energy crisis, our crisis, poverty has just went up in the state. None of this was actually addressed. Our homelessness crisis, so one of the biggest crises that he, as a former mayor of San Francisco and then governor of the state of California, has supposedly been a priority for him, failed to address honestly the state of all of these issues in the state of California. And again, we are the fourth largest economy in the world, yet our kids are failing in math, in science, they're not grade level proficient. We are the fourth largest economy in the world, yet we have one of the highest child poverty rates. It's too expensive to live in this state. And yet again, the governor, I think even some of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle who will never say this publicly were like, Governor, behind closed doors, they're like, Governor, like you painted California's picture as rosy and perfect. And there's a lot for us proud of what we've done in the state. But our constituents don't feel the ease that the governor feels at home. And so both sides of the aisle, again, my colleagues won't admit it publicly, but they know that there was not a whole lot of honesty in the governor's state of the state address.
Very interesting. Now, we've talked a lot of the time about the affordability crisis here in California, and that's not just housing, that's also income, that's also the regular costs that we have just in the day-to-day. How are those impacting families in your district?
I really believe that my overwhelming, my race was supposed to be very close. And I had a pretty resounding win in 2024 because I was listening to people who want their representatives to focus on an affordability crisis. Now, as I mentioned earlier, our poverty rate has went up in the state. Housing supply is still down. So home ownership, the dream is, further and further away because we're not building. People are paying nearly 50% of their income on housing. And that's not sustainable when everything else is going up as well. Grocery prices, prices at the pump, everything is going up. And when I was elected, I was very clear that I was going to focus on the issues that address affordability. My colleagues on the other side of the aisle, 2025 was supposed to be the year of affordability. There were 4 bills, maybe that will address out of 2,500 bills that were introduced. Time and time again, bills that I carried and some of my Republican colleagues, things like no tax on tips, things like sales tax holidays for teachers so they can buy school supplies, things like a tax on our senior citizens who live on fixed incomes, the tax that would, or actually my bill to allow for 100% disabled veterans to be exempt from property tax. All of the things that are going to offer real relief for the middle class and hardworking Californians have been rejected time and time again. And so I'm really disappointed that we haven't policy make it to the governor's desk that are going to impact the middle class. That's who needs the help the most, I believe, in the state of California. That's what I hear from my RP. That there's a lot of programs and money spent for people who live below the poverty line, which is important. People who are the 1%, the 10% that make a lot of money that can afford to live in California aren't necessarily struggling, but the middle class, we are constantly struggling, and there's not remotely enough being done to truly address the working class and middle class affordability crisis. And then I'll just add, Jade, that what's even more infuriating is, and I could talk about affordability and the root causes for hours on this with you. One of them is gas prices, which we're going to see another refinery close in April, which is going to probably make gas prices go up. We're really either at the tip of the cliff here, Jade, or we're already falling and just don't realize it when it comes to gas prices and oil production in the state of California. What's even the most infuriating to me is just this last week, the Assembly passed a study bill that to essentially find a path to raise taxes or to tax drivers every mile that they drive. And talk about hitting the working class even harder. In Santa Clarita, in the Antelope Valley, the high deserts that we choose to live there because they're great communities, but also because it's what we can afford. And we drive into LA, we drive into, the high desert area. Some people drive down to Fontana. And the people who need the most relief are going to end up paying more for gas prices. And again, it's another example, I think, of out-of-touch Sacramento.
Yeah, so the bill that you're actually talking about, I believe that is AB 1421, which I'm just going to give a little bit of a description of what that is. It is a study that is potentially replacing gas tax with a mileage system. So people who drive more would pay more. Does that sound correct?
Correct. And, some of my colleagues are like, we're not passing a tax. Well, I mean, most of these horrible bills, a lot of them do start out as study bills because they're trying to figure out how to do it. A study bill, but don't be fooled. The intent is to raise taxes through a mileage tax. And they're not going, it's my understanding, no one wants to replace the gas tax. We tried to repeal it on the ballot a couple of years ago. and the far left environmentalists fought that. They don't want to repeal it. They just want more money because we have a spending problem in this state. We have a $340 billion budget. That's the amount of revenue that we brought in this past year, but an $18 billion deficit because we don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. So again, this is another way. We need more money. How can we tax? We get more from the the middle class and the working class.
Yeah, which I appreciate you keep bringing that up. I was just doing a little bit of research, and over time, basically since the 1970s, the middle class as we know it, which was basically established by post-World War II and the GI Bill, has shrunk by over 50%. It went 50% of American families were in lower middle class in 1979 to only 16% by 2024. So we see a massive decrease over generations of people falling either this class divide very, very broadly, whereas you keep saying, middle point, there's not much there in the middle. We're either falling into lower income or higher tax brackets. And very interesting to see that the way that your policies are trying over in Sacramento, and I don't mean you specifically, I mean just elected officials in general, are trying to address this. Now, we've talked a lot about, hey, we have a spending issue, hey, we have an affordability issue. What are the ways that you and your other constituents are trying to address this in this legislative session so far?
We're trying to push through lots of bills that would put money directly in the pockets of the middle class. But one of the things and I'll dig into this a little bit because it's really important. I don't think enough people understand the impact of and energy costs in the state of California, and how it's by design. With our climate goals and the climate justice interest groups, they've really, for the last 2 decades, been very powerful and passed bill after bill that have intended and pretty much achieved killing the oil industry in California. So in the state of California, we used to have 30 refineries. Now we have, after regulation, we have 8 and another closing in April. In the state of California, nearly 80% of oil production was from within California. That's now flipped. Nearly 80% of production and supply comes from out of California. So we're not producing oil in California, which means we don't have the cleaner, cheaper fuel from California. We're importing it. We don't have the good paying jobs, throughout all of the oil production, supply chain. Those are all middle class jobs that have left or been diminished. So because of policies that have been put forward to kill the industry, right? If you say we want to get rid of this industry, well, they've nearly achieved that. Now, what are the results, right? The results are that we pay higher prices at the pump. We pay to Hawaii, which is an island thousands of miles away, we pay the highest gas prices in the nation. Of what we pay per gallon, $1.61 of that goes into taxes. The oil industry receives about 35 cents of profit from a gallon. The government receives about $1.61. That just seems backwards to me. Now, obviously, that impacts us when we're filling up our tanks. Also, thing that we need, from groceries to Amazon shipments. Everyone uses fuel for our economy. So the reality is that demand is not going down in the state of California, but we're making it more expensive to access oil and gas. And that's just oil and the gas. We can also go into how these policies have impacted, our energy, and we haven't put enough money into our energy, which is also at risk. So all of these things are connected. And so what I'm focusing on is really the a just transition to meet our climate goals. That's not carried on the back of working families. So you're going to see a lot from me on that issue, because I truly think that and housing are two of the core reasons why it's so expensive to do business and to live in California.
Thank you. I know that was a very intense question that I asked.
Yeah. I love it, though. You know, people, people need to know and understand California, fourth largest economy in the world, and we have a complex, very volatile, and it's confusing to a lot of people. So it's important that people understand, you know, what they can of it. To do this, but it's important to people to understand what I'm working on to try and fix it as well. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, of course. Do you have anything else that you'd like your constituents to be aware of that you're doing in the next couple of weeks?
You know, I'm fighting for our community, whether it's ability. I really believe the right to live in a safe community, supporting law enforcement and public safety for our kids and for future generations. Those are my key legislative focuses on everything that I'm doing. But what I also really love, Jade, is a few bills that I ran last year. One is allowing access to terminally ill patients for telehealth, expansion of telehealth, so doctors that live outside of the state if you have a terminal illness. I love district bills, ideas that come from our. Have a bill idea, please reach out to me. Would love to talk to you about it, even if it's not around just affordability. Any issue is important to you, or anyone listening. Give my office a call. Send me an email. Would love to hear about your bill idea.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That is State Senator Suzette Valladares representing District 23. You can find more information about how to contact any of her district offices on her 23.senate.ca.gov, or just give it a little Google, and I'm sure you'll be able to find something that is easier to remember than that. But thank you so much for joining.
Thanks, Jade. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, California State Senator Suzette Valladares and Jade, for that interview. The tail end of that interview, you can catch it in its entirety by heading on over to facebook.com or youtube.com/KHTS Radio. This is KHTS 1220.